how to build a report such as this one. Additional metrics or KPIs like realization, payout class can just easily be added to that frame, right? So we can fill out all the information that we want to add for that specific user, right? He will only see his own information. Why most sales performance reports fail for the sales teams, right? So the first things that usually is missing in these reports is that there's a lot of numbers without clear context, right? So there's no clear story. There's a lot of charts, visualizations, but there's no clear insights, no targets, no trends, or benchmarks where we can clearly see how we're performing. And when we're including all of these comparisons and variance between like reps, periods, products, and regions, there's no clear explanations. There's no consistent standards like colors, formats, and scaling. And in the end, the reports fail to explain why performance changed, right? You only basically showcase what the numbers are, but you don't explain through the reports what is the action and what actually happens, right? So what we want to, in actionable reporting, we want to display and guide the users or the report users to see not only what happened, right, but also to guide them towards the correct decision and actions and so on. So this is typically why the reports also fail. And when we obscure the data and either present it just in plain numbers or tables and so on, or do not visualize it properly, this forces sales leaders and operations specialists and so on to dig, export, and interpret instead of actually act, right? So we spend a lot of time trying to understand what is even the report showing and not interpreting that data, right? And providing the right actions. Now, a lot of times we also then leave the reps guessing about like quota attainment and commissions, and that can lead to some frustrations. And a lot of times all of this is also consumed on mobile reports, right? So that's or on the go, right? So we want to optimize this for different user groups and different requirements. And this is also a key thing that's usually missing in these kind of reports. Now, what is the goal here and what the sales performance report should deliver is, of course, instant clarity, right? No digging at a glance, attainment versus quota, pipelines, forecasts, and risk on deals needs to be immediately transparent, right? And so has to be the commission logic, right? Clear view of plan structures, rate tiers, accelerators, caps, drawbacks, and so on. So reps instantly see how they're doing, what's the existing commission base, what are the required activities, and basically they can do a self-assessment as well. Now, a lot of the things that this, of course, requires is also clear forecasts and targets, right? So forward-looking views with end-of-month forecasts per rep and estimated like commission payouts to highlight the gaps and recommended actions then to close them. Now, all of this, of course, needs to be secure and governed. So we need to have role-based access. We can ensure role-level security for sensitive revenue and commission data. And in the end, as we said, this needs to work for everyone, like optimized for desktop consumption with executive, but also for sales reps in the field, right? So when they're working on the road and so on. Okay, so we'll look at, now we'll go into the demo and we'll look at a typical real-world sales environment and specifics of the sales performance reporting, like how to do on reps, key accounts, channel performance. We'll dive into key KPIs like actual sales plans, variances, end of month target progress, win rates, payouts, and commissions. And will look through it through the lenses of different stakeholders, like managers who needs more of like overviews and comparisons, sales reps who want to target their own incentives and commissions, and execs who need like accurate, quick insights with also added comments. Okay, so let's jump into Power BI and see how to build a report such as this one, right? So this is a report you can easily build with Zebra BI visuals. Now, before we actually go into this, a lot of you are, of course, following and joining us for the first time. So we need to maybe just give you a brief explanation of what a Zebra BI visual is. So let's just go to a clean page here in Power BI, and I'll show you how to access the visuals first, but also how easy it is to then build all of this information. Of course, we do have to have our data ready for that, right? But once you bring the data, it's essential that we visualize it properly. Okay, so if we take a look at the screen, you will find Zebra BI visuals as a custom visual in Power BI. So here are the standard visualizations, and you can also, of course, spin your custom visuals, as you can see here. But first of all, you have to bring them into your reports. So if you already have a template for that's already prepared, that's even better. Or you can also design the report so these are organizational visuals. So basically, everyone can use this in the same way that you would any other visualization type in Power BI. But before that, if you're just starting out for the first time, all you need to do is go to App Source, search for Zebra, and here you'll find all three visuals that are used and then included in this, right? And each visual has its own more specialized purposes, right? So the Zebra BI cards can be really well used for scorecard reports, KPI tracking, and so on. The Zebra BI charts are mainly for time trends analysis and includes all sorts of best practice visual charting options. And Zebra BI tables is a very, very comprehensive visual that can display different details, different level of details. And it's mainly used for, let's say, structural breakdowns. Okay, but once you basically import those visuals, and as you can see, they are Power BI certified, so you can have basically the same experience as you would with all native Power BI visuals. Your data is secured, and Microsoft guarantees this, that this is only being used for visualization and no data is actually stored or so on. Okay, but once you actually bring those visuals to your visualization pane, you of course need to start building it, and you can just add the visualization by clicking on it. And if we start with the charts, right, the best way to showcase this is you can just add any measure that you want to benchmark it, right? So actuals versus plan, or break it down by first maybe a month, right, the time trend. But in this case, of course, we want to turn off the slicer for this visual, okay? So we can also turn off the interaction altogether, so the slicer shouldn't affect the trends, and you can do this here in the edit interactions. You simply turn this off, and now even if I have a month selected like this, of course, it's not going to affect the visual. Okay, but this is not yet actionable, right? What we want to do is we want to include some sort of performance tracking. So either versus previous year or versus plan, right? We just simply drag and drop that measure into the placeholder, and Zebra BI will actually visualize this. So here you have a lot of different chart options, right? So, and all of them are basically according to best practices. Of course, depending on different, let's say, trends or timelines that you're looking at, maybe you want to use something like a clustered column chart like this, right? And this is all responsive. So even if we make the visual smaller, right, we can have different views. It's very interactive, and you can customize the experience for your end users, right? You can also change layouts to present just growth trends and so on in the chart settings, something like this, right? Where we present just absolute growth trends and so on. But will not dive too much into this specifics, right? The important thing is that you don't need to think about the design. It's always focused on performance. So whatever metric you follow, it will follow performance, and then you have just different types of displaying this, whether it is a waterfall chart for the global trends, or maybe something like a column chart for analyzing individual periods better. Okay, that's for the chart visualization, right? But as I mentioned, right, you can use also the Zebra BI cards and the Zebra BI tables. So the cards, again, can be used, you just bring it to the visualization pane, and then you add, so let me just turn off the interactions for now. And then you add, again, your measures. You can then add, again, a comparison measure, and then you can break it down by different units. So it can be by locations, by segments, and so on. So in this case, you could like just use different groups of segments, and you can use this as a KPI breakdown of sorts to display like different targets. And it's all, of course, built into the visualization, right? So there's no additional need of formatting, except maybe just to add is proper scaling between all those metrics, right? And to have like a correct display of the impact also on your sales. Now, the last visualization is, as I mentioned, the Zebra BI tables, which can be really, really powerful in terms of display against all tracked metrics. So if we want to benchmark our sales force, we can just start with the segment, add in like a name for the sales reps, and just expand the hierarchy. And now we add our actual data. So again, we add data, we add our targets, and Zebra BI visuals will do the rest. They will track against your performance. You can format, you can change the display logic of different visualizations. And when we need to add secondary values, it's as easy as just dropping those into the placeholder value for values, right? So additional metrics or KPIs like realization, payout class can just easily be added to that frame, right? So we can fill out all the information that we want to add for our sales force and then executives, and voila, we already have a really nice report. And you can even combine like different layouts, right? So if you want to have more like a numbers view, but again, it's always best to include any sort of visualization. So you can easily just switch like contribution or to any other like display, and then combine maybe a full visualized view, and you can display like different chart options like size dots that easily like forecast and display your amounts. Plus, if you need to, of course, then add like forecasting scenarios and so on, we can also add that, right? So for instance, when we're in November, we could just easily add the unclosed measure, and using the logic, right, and the standardization, we can easily now represent the forecast with a hatched pattern. So we see exactly how we're doing on each of those KPIs, right? But let's go now to the finish page, and let's see how we can, of course, interpret that data, right? So we can easily now track for each of the representatives, either the managers or the store consultants, sales advisors, how they were doing, what is the commission that needs to be tracked, and so on. We see the payout class, the payout, and the commission base. Now, there's a lot of information here, but it's easily digestible, and we see exactly how we are performing. Now, even if we were to include like an overlapped bar chart, right, because everything is correctly scaled, we now have the correct representation of each of the data points. And we can sort by either the best performing units, the worst performing units, and so on. So it's easily accessible to everyone on one click. Now, the important part here is also to, of course, include those end of month trends and forecasts, right? So that we can actually plan on top of it and provide even additional information. And for this, we can, as I said, bring in the forecast scenario, but right, in that case, when we look into this end of month trends with the forecasts, we want to also showcase those variances. Now, I know Tine has worked on quite a lot of this sales reports, so I'll just give him maybe a chance here to jump in and add his own perspective also, and how to then look into this in more like a trend-like view to understand exactly how we're performing.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. That's a great point. And I do think like this end of month trend calculation is super important, especially when we are dealing with like maybe daily based data frequency, but at the same time, you want to compare it to something that is on monthly level, like forecast or a plan. So essentially, you know, what we want to achieve is to basically create an adequate number that we can actually compare to our forecasts and plans and targets and so on. And you know, because if you are only like 5 days into your month, it doesn't make sense to compare those numbers with your full month plan, for example. And essentially, with end of month trend, we try to predict what our performance will be at the end of the month. Of course, this is not the exact number, but it does give us ability to have like a valid comparison point. And there are different ways how to do that. So basically, you can do something really simple, like a linear trend of your performance, how you know this will end up. And typically, you can also do things like combining your month-to-date data. So, for example, if you already have like actual data for the first 10 days, of course, that's the real information. We want to keep that. But then maybe we can calculate, you know, what is the average daily sales. And, you know, if we know that we have 20 remaining days, we can just maybe multiply those two and add on top of, you know, month-to-date data that we already have. And this will give you a kind of an indication what will be end-of-month performance. But the good thing is that with each day, right, your data is becoming more and more reliable because, you know, more data is the actual data, and then those prediction trend data, it's becoming less and less with each day. Maybe, you know, we can do even more complex and advanced things. So, for example, of course, some industries have their own pipelines, meaning you have the deals that you're, I don't know, predicting to close and so on. So you can maybe add your weighted pipeline on top of month-to-date performance. And again, what you are achieving with that is prediction. What will the end-of-month result be? And this gives you ability to compare that to your official plan, which again, I think is the whole benefit in all of that.
Yeah, excellent. And that's of course the whole idea, right? So we want to provide as much information and as detailed information at the right time, but also, of course, be prepared for everything in the future. Now, of course, the majority of time that your users will spend is looking at, if you, of course, design the reports really well, on the overview page where the data is accessed and personalized directly for them. Now, the other thing that you can, of course, do and then be really specific about it, and this is maybe some more of the advanced stuff. You can also like add certain filters to the filters context, and then if you want to like specify dynamic titles and stuff like that, you can also just drop it into the filters placeholder, and this is specific to Zebra BI visuals, and this allows you to do also like a lot of cool things, right? Dynamic titles in this case. So for instance, we can reference those measures here with simple autocomplete. So if I wanted to just call out the selected month in a particular header category or in the title itself, right? So even better maybe would be to call it out in the title here for selected year and selected month, right? I can do this in the title because I have those reference points added. So in this case, I can just add in selected month, but yeah, just remove this one. Okay. So this means that now this respectively reflects whatever I have my selection, and the users will know better, right, what the actual data is displayed. Now, additionally, we can enhance some of the displays with custom tooltips, right? So basically, we can allow breakdowns of further breakdowns without even leaving the page. So when we don't need to go to a details page just yet, right? When we just want to see the top customers for that particular period, or maybe we can switch the tooltip, right? So here we can present this for a different group, right? So either break it down by product group, on particular like reps, and or later on, right, even for sales type, right? So you could modify the tooltips and displays and so on within Power BI, but also, as I said, by using like different views and maybe even bookmarking them to present the exact specific detail. And you can even allow the end users to have personalized bookmarked views. Now, the filters placeholder also acts as a really good indicator for us so that we can add commentary on top of it, right? So to explain something that is not even in the data set, right? And only the users, of course, have that insight. And this explanatory insights can be added, and this is really powerful, can be added directly to the dashboard. So when your manager asks about the things, he can see like dedicated commentary for those the specific areas, right? So if you wanted to add a comment, you can just go into the annotation layer and just add your comment on a particular data point, right? Just like that. And it will be saved with the specific filter context in mind, right? So if I now go to look at some of the different sales reps, I can see the commentary just for that particular sales rep. Now, one of the important aspects we talked about is also that security, right? And that it has to be personalized for each and every sales representative or for manager views and so on. And we can actually control this through the role level security. We can set our own roles and then view how and role play those roles, so we can basically test them out, right? And the best way to do is to either do it on your existing Azure or now Entra ID groups, and you basically define your roles for security. So, for instance, when we just want to role play, and this is just for role play sake, right? We can just create a role for that specialized user. This, of course, is maybe not the best practice, right? The best practice would be to actually use a user principal name. So this means that whatever their Microsoft login is and whatever their Microsoft specific roles are, right, and permissions, it would be applied based on that, right? So for instance, when I'm looking at my own data, I can then just view as that user limited role. So my own data will only be displayed, and it will check actually for my credentials. So now I can see only the data required for me. And this goes also for other pages. Like if I go to the details page, I can now see only my details where I can have like maybe more of a table layout where I want to go into and dig into, right? But the main information on my performance is, of course, on the main page, right? Only if I need to look for a specific data point, I can go into this details page. Now, and this is accessible like with one click and so Now, if I were to play like view as like a different role with maybe unlimited access as a manager, right? I could see all of this information, right? And that's of course as expected. And again, right, maybe for that specific user, right, he will only see his own information, and that's the best way basically to specify the role level security and access so that the user sees only their information, and they can also then personalize this information once the report is published and in service.